of all the poor things I used to do. I don't do no more, for the Lord's made a change in me.
This is Real History, and this is Melissa, and today is Thursday, the 31st of August, 2023, and I am joined by Darin in South Africa and also Joanne Burmester, who works with Petrus Sitho that we talked to a couple of months back. So, hello, Joanne.
Hi, Melissa.
How are you?
How are you?
Slightly frustrated because once again we have a little bit of sound difficulty, but we're going to muddle through this.
Yep.
Darin, how are you doing?
All well, thanks, Melissa. I'll try not to cough you two out of the podcast.
Okay. Joanne, I want to know, well, first of all, Darin, I'm not even sure that I know what part of South Africa you are in.
I'm in Port Elizabeth, the Eastern Cape.
The Eastern Cape, okay. And Joanne, where are you located?
I'm in Pietermaritzburg. That's in Natal.
Okay. So
which
you're
is now KwaZulu Natal.
Yeah. So you're a fair distance from one another.
Yes.
Yeah. It's a big country.
Yep, it is. It's about a day's drive. Hey, Darin?
It is about a day, yeah.
Wow.
If I want to drive up to Sedona Bay to dive, I normally drive through, spend an evening with relatives in Durban, and then carry on the drive. So it's a good full day drive.
Ah.
Yep.
I was asking you, Joanne, before we started to record, how you became aware of Petrus and what he was doing. And unfortunately, he wasn't able to join us today. He's doing some recording on a project related to this. And so he's in the studio and so can't be here with us. But you met him, you said, a couple of years ago. And I was wondering how you met him, how he came to your attention.
Well, I think I've always followed the farm murders that are happening in this country, and Petrus came up quite often. He did a lot of walks, carrying that cross. So I think he stood out to a lot of people. And at the time, I never reached out to him or anything. Until I joined up with another group that were wanting to get the elections moved to 2023 and get the ANC out. And, I thought to myself, okay, well, let me contact Petrus and see if he would be willing to join this protest that we were planning. And, yep, he was. And we have been working together ever since.
That's great. That's great. So what is it, what was it about Petrus and the way that he was approaching this that made him seem different or more, just what made you click with him and want to work so closely with him?
So for me, I would say the fact that he's a black man doing this for farmers that are predominantly white, that stood out. And I think that's what stands out to everybody. And people don't know quite what to make of it. Because it's just a, you don't see that.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think that is what got my attention. I followed quite a few activists, and I never approached any of the others that dealt with farm murders. It was only him. So I was like, a silent watcher and thinking, I need to do something. it cannot go on. And I think, we spoke when we were arranging for him to come to the protest, and we kind of hit it off, and then I started helping him with like admin things, doing his emails, looking after his website, pretty much all in. And it's just kind of gone like that. So
now, you said that you were a teacher.
Yes, I teach English online. So I teach Chinese students.
Ah. So are they far-flung around the globe, or that just reach out to study English with you?
No, I work for a company.
Ah, okay.
That they've basically got students, and the students, if they're happy with you, they pick you. And so my time's pretty flexible most of the time. I can change it, if I need to. But sometimes it is very hectic as well. Especially at the moment, because they are on their vacation. And unlike most children on vacation, they study harder than when they are at school.
Interesting.
Yeah.
It's a different ethic.
Completely. I mean, I have 3-year-olds that can have a conversation in English and, are learning to read.
Wow.
Yeah. It's they are very, very driven, and they don't. In a way, I feel sorry for the children because they don't get that, childhood. Mm-hmm. But the hard work, I think, pays off for them in the end, because learning a new language is easiest when you're young.
Yes. That's true.
So, yeah.
Well, the farm murders are horrific, and it is worth paying attention. And I suppose if you're living, in a country, you want to be aware of all of the different issues that you're faced with. But did you have a personal encounter or a personal connection to any farm attack or farm murder?
There was a family that were murdered about 2 years ago. That the husband worked with my dad, and the wife I worked with. And they retired and moved away to a farm, and, everything was going great. And they were brutally killed in their home over a Christmas bonus. And they were retirement age, obviously, and she had her father with her. So they attacked Donnie in the workshop and killed him, and went to the house, found her and killed her, then went and looked for the old man and killed him as well. I think living in this country, it's very hard not to be affected by the violence. I've seen people die on more than one occasion. Especially moving to this side of the country. I think Pietermaritzburg is sitting at number 2 as one of the most dangerous cities in the whole of in the whole of Africa. And I'm actually from the Eastern Cape originally. I'm from East London, same as Petrus. Small world. And we moved here when... Yeah. And the first night that we were here, I mean, I was still in junior school, and there was a murder outside our house. And I was outside with my parents, you know, trying to help this guy, but he'd been stabbed so many times that you couldn't plug the holes fast enough. And the ambulance, they always do, they take forever. And he died. So, yeah, violence is just something that you're always aware of.
You're not supposed to ask a woman her age. I don't want to do that, but I think that
I'm 46.
Okay.
So you don't have to ask.
So you were a teenager at the end of apartheid.
Yes. I matriculated from high school in 94. So, yeah, strange timing. But yes, it's growing up in apartheid. I think a lot of South Africans can say this, that were growing up in that time. We weren't aware of, you know, what was happening. I was basically raised by our domestic worker. She looked after me. You know, her child used to come on weekends and stuff, and we used to play together. And to me, you know, I didn't even know until I got to high school age, I think, that you realize that there is this division, but then you're still not sure to, you know, the exact, how bad it was. So a lot of us have grown up, you know, not being racist. I think that a lot of people become racist because of the violence that we are living in. You know, when someone close to you is taken, you know, it's hard not to feel anger. And a lot of these attacks are by people that they know, people that they trust. So it gives you serious, like, trust issues as well. I mean, like I was telling you, I was raised by our domestic worker who moved with us from East London to Pietermaritzburg. And during that time, 90 to 94 was not a good time to be a Xhosa in a Zulu area.
To be a what?
It's a Xhosa. So that is what she was. She was Xhosa speaking, same as Petrus.
Okay.
And, you know, to come to a different area where it's different people and they speak a different language. And especially at that time, you know, a lot of people were being attacked, killed, you know, because you don't support the right political party. So she got very paranoid. She never really went anywhere. I must say, I think one of the last nights that she was with us, I think she'd lost her mind completely. You know, she was doing the dishes, and I was in a teenage temper, you know, and she actually pulled a bread knife on me. And my parents were out. The neighbors heard the screaming, and they came over and fetched me and my two younger sisters until my parents got home. Yeah, we went to the police and what, you know. And all she wanted was to go back to East London.
Mm-hmm.
She didn't want to be here, but the police said to us, you know, look at her eyes. They were like saucers, you know, like she's not sane.
Mm-hmm.
So we paid for her to, you know, catch a bus and go back to East London. But, you know, being raised by her and then her turning around and wanting to kill me was, you know, a bit daunting.
Mm-hmm. And
so yeah.
So the pressures, so it was she who was afraid of other black people because she might not have been associated with the right political movement, or is that what, yeah, okay.
Yeah. Yes, exactly. Plus, the ANC and the uMkhonto at that time, Darin can tell you as well, there was a lot of violence, you know, towards the elections after, well, even before Mandela was released. And, you know, you'd be walking along as a black person and get stopped by another black person, and they'll ask you, what party are you? Now, you don't know what to say because you don't know what party they are. And if you say the wrong party, they will kill you.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And the Zulus are known for their bloodlust. I don't know how else to put it.
Yeah, I saw the movie.
So, yeah, Shaka Zulu.
Yeah. Scary, terrifying, actually. I mean, I know it's a movie, but yeah.
Well, he was. And to think his brother killed him because he was too way gone. But then, you know, you look at history, then Dingaan killed the fur trackers. He made a deal with them and invited them to dinner and slaughtered them.
Mm.
So then you can imagine if he killed his own brother because his brother was bad, but that was what he was capable of, then, yeah, how bad was Shaka?
Well, you sent me a little piece that you wrote about Nelson Mandela, his background, and the group that he was in was revolutionary, the terrorist cell of the ANC.
uMkhonto Sizwe.
Okay.
Yes, yeah. He formed the uMkhonto Sizwe. He broke off basically from the ANC and formed uMkhonto Sizwe.
And this was, just to set this for the historically illiterate, including myself, this was the early 60s, like 1960 or late 50s? What was the time period here?
It was 1961
when
it was officially set up, and he was the one who set it up. You know, you try and you know, track his movements, you know, like right from birth. Like I put in an article, you know, he came from almost like royalty. He studied, you know, he was qualified as a lawyer. He had Jewish friends, white friends, and for him to just go completely the other direction, where he felt that, you know, he needed to break away even from the ANC as such, because they weren't willing to be violent enough to take to take the country. And so he went and formed uMkhonto Sizwe and went for training. He actually left South Africa. I'm not sure where he went for training, in guerrilla warfare.
Okay,
And
this Darin, we might want to pipe. You might want to pipe in here so that we can fill in this part of the story. But what we're talking about here is it's a very different image of Nelson Mandela, and we'll also be talking about his wife Winnie. Than the mainstream press has given, because the way that this has been characterized, and now you have a whole generation plus that has grown up with the new view of history, is that he was a hero who unified all of the black people and fought apartheid and was instrumental in overturning that, and by being basically the first high-profile member of the ANC, although he went into the terrorist part of that, he then became the president of the country. And this was huge. And I think the way that Darin characterized apartheid is it was a horrible system that nobody wanted. I'm kind of going all over the map here, but I want to ask you a question, Darin. Do you think that taking away the terrorist wing of the ANC, was their movement in a maybe slower, steady way amongst the white population of South Africa to change this system gradually?
I'm just a few years older than Joanne, and the first time I spoke to you about South Africa, I mentioned, all of us have a slightly different take. So my experience, I think you summed up things quite well when you said the way that Nelson Mandela has been characterized for the international audience. He's been given the character of the father of the Rainbow Nation, that he was unjustly imprisoned, no fault of his own. He was almost a martyr. He was in prison for 27 years, and he came out of prison with a big, warm, grandfatherly smile. He was willing to reconcile with the evil apartheid system and to let bygones be bygones and to create a country for everyone where everyone is included, etc., etc. And so he's been given this, as you said again, a characterization of somebody who is the father figure who has come out to settle everything down. But the part about him being almost, a freedom fighter in one man's eyes and an utter ruthless terrorist in the eyes of others seems to have been left out, because in the Wikipedia article that I've read on Nelson Mandela, it's true. They did try to fight the system from a political point of view, but their political stance was never recognized. It was never taken seriously. So a lot of people, and you don't have to be a communist or a member of a communist party or a far left-leaning liberal organization to realize that if you put yourself into the shoes of a Nelson Mandela, and your people have been systematically treated as third-rate human beings in the land where they're born, you'd have to ask yourself, well, would I be the Gandhi of the day, After I've exhausted all political angles and talking and trying to reach people, would I also not resort to violence? And this might sound a little bit controversial, but I think it's quite fair. I think I probably would have started fighting back physically. I don't think there's anything wrong with it if other means have been exhausted, but the way that you go about doing it matters a lot. The problem is that, in the uMkhonto Sizwe organization, you have cadres, people that were trained by the Soviet machine. They often had uMkhonto Sizwe, what do they call them, stations or headquarters were off just outside the country. Mm-hmm. And they were trained militarily by the Soviets. And, they fought the apartheid system in what you could only call a dirty dirty warfare. So there were bombs going off all over the place. A lot of civilians and children did get killed. And Nelson Mandela is involved. He was involved. It can't be denied. So he certainly was no African Gandhi. That's the part of his characterization that is kept quiet is the part where he has been involved as a soldier or as a terrorist, if you want to call him that, or as a freedom fighter. But he wasn't opposed to violence. He was involved with violence. He used violence. He agreed with it. And that violence was often targeted, they claim by mistake, but a lot of innocent people who had nothing to do with enforcing the apartheid system were hurt or killed. And it is important in the general scheme of things that people do know this about Nelson Mandela. And, you know, as Joanne was saying, Joanne was mentioning Winnie Mandela. It's also important to factor how Winnie Mandela fits into the picture as well.
The thing, too, that I want, you know, the little bit that I've read of both what you've written and other articles surrounding it, is that the violence that Nelson and Winnie Mandela used was not strictly black on white or freedom fighter / terrorist against white apartheid oppressors violence. This was also intimidation and violence, black on black, of people who were not cooperating with with their political agenda.
Can I step in again?
Yes,
Joanne.
Yeah, you can.
All right. I just wanted to, I've been trying to do a little bit of catch up on my side as well, because it's not a topic that I'm strongly familiar with. But in a freedom fighting movement, you're going to have all different types of personalities involved. So I've been looking back at the different characters involved with the ANC and uMkhonto Sizwe. I've been reading into the Rwanda trial, and you look into the characters, you can start seeing a picture forming. You have people that were involved who were intellectuals. You have people that come from all walks of life, and invariably you're going to get those who are more sober-minded, who are more reconciliatory, who aren't willing to go too crazy, and then you're going to get the characters they've got the bloodlust, they are full of vengeful hate, and they are willing to go the extra mile and blow up civilians. And you look at a character like Winnie Mandela, and it's written all over her face. And right up until her death, she was fomenting hate. She was behind the likes of Julius Malema when he was with the ANC Youth League, always stirring the pot, always looking for the more radical angle. Nelson Mandela did divorce her, and she contested the divorce and is always trying to angle in on his wealth or his fame. That she was just a person of bad character. If you just look at her history, she was involved with the murder of a young activist who she suspected of divulging confidential information to the state. So she was willing to be really, really dirty. Mm-hmm. So I have to look at the ANC and uMkhonto Sizwe, and I have to look at the apartheid system, and I have to juggle things in my mind. I can't justify apartheid to myself. It is wrong. And if I was a young black person born in this land, and I was a third-rate citizen, and it was systemic, in the law, I would have an axe to grind. I certainly would. Mm-hmm. So I think that the moral high ground was against the apartheid system is the correct one to have. But unfortunately, in any good cause or political movement, you're going to have the big geopolitical actors, so you have the likes of the Kissingers and the Russians and everyone steering the background support and the weaponry and the training and all that kind of thing, which goes on. And then within the movement, you're going to have various types of actors. So I think Nelson Mandela was chosen at the end of the day for presidency because he was viewed as being the more agreeable type of character that everyone could accept. Because there were some really nasty, really sick members of the Communist Party who I don't know all the names off the bat, but there were certainly some filthy, ruthless, disgusting people that played a role in the freedom movement. So, yeah, you have to look at both sides that way.
So, with regards to the person that she killed, I'm guessing you're referring to Stompie.
That's the one. Yeah.
He was 14 years old.
Yeah, and his accomplices. There were 4 boys apparently kidnapped. They were beaten to a pulp. He was beaten to death and his throat was cut. And he was later proven to be innocent. But she went on to be charged for, just think of a crime, and she's had her finger in the pie. A terrible woman, but overall, protected by the greater ANC family.
All she got was a 6 years jail sentence, which was reduced to a fine and a 2-year suspended sentence.
Wow.
For ruthlessly, I think she must have been one of the most evil women.
She's got egotistical narcissist written on her face. Yeah.
She was definitely a piece of work, but I don't know if you saw who she was when she met Mandela. She was a social worker, and you think a social worker who goes and does something like that to children, it's some of these things that have happened, you cannot, no matter how much you try, wrap your head around how people could do this. How could you do this and go to sleep and function and be, it's...
If I look back, I was just thinking to myself now, I think of the American... I would actually call her the South African version of Hillary.
Oh, that has occurred to me.
Because there's the little saying in America, those people there and there have been Clintoned. Is that right? Or Hillaried?
Or Arkancided.
That's it, yeah. And I think a lot of people have had a similar experience at the hand of Winnie Mandela. She was the one that was famous worldwide for saying, with the matches and the petrol and the tires, we will fight and win or whatever. And, that takes you onto necklacing, which is, I don't know if it's only a South African thing. I think I've seen people being necklaced in Haiti as well. But maybe she invented it, or maybe it had its first...
As far as I'm aware, it did come from South Africa from the so around her time. And, when Winnie and Mandela were discussing what to do with people who they suspected as being informants, Nelson's choice was to cut off people's noses. Hers was the tire, the petrol, and the matches.
Okay, so the tire, the petrol, and the matches is necklacing. Joanne, can you describe that?
Okay, so I went for my work experience 2 weeks. I decided I wanted to go to the police. It's something that they used to do at our school. You got an opportunity to go and see what it was like in the career that you thought you wanted. I got to see a woman being necklaced and her husband was a policeman. She was suspected of being an informant, and they put petrol in the tire. They basically put it over your head and pin your arms. So basically, it's holding your arms to your body. So you can't do anything. You are bound with this big tire holding you that's filled with petrol. Then they pour petrol on you and light the match. And it's not even a solemn occasion. It's like a cause for celebration, because there's people shouting, chanting. This woman was running around on fire, begging for help. And they were smashing her with rocks, bricks. Yes. Darin.
Joanne, yes, I've seen it, not up front. I haven't seen it personally. I have a cousin, about 2 years older than me, who began his military service. But, you could pick, if you were lucky, you could pick to be a policeman or in the army or navy or whatever it was. He was a policeman at that political time in Durban. Oh. And he actually saw more than one necklacing, but I don't know how many he saw in total. And he says it's the most sickening sight you can imagine, because the person takes a hell of a long time to die.
They do.
And they actually get so hot that the eyeballs in their head actually pop out.
Yeah.
And they're still alive. And then it's hard to tell when they've died, because their nervous system might start contracting. So you see someone that's burning to a crisp and their body's still moving. Anyway, the other part that really disturbed me, just as Joanne was saying, there's something missing for me psychologically with a lot of people that I share this country with. Because I've got my limits, and I can understand hatred. I can understand wanting to punish maybe a political dissident or something. But when you set someone on fire in that cruel manner, and everyone, there's children involved, they're all there.
Yep.
All ages, men, women, and a lot of the time it's the women. I'm quite surprised. It's the women who are singing and smiling and ululating, and it's having this experience, like celebrating it at the expense of this victim, who you think that even if you hate them, you could sort of have more of a solemn. To see people celebrating like that of all ages, there's another level here that disturbs me personally.
Yeah.
Anyway, I just wanted to add that, because
Joanne,
there's a level of hatred. Yeah.
Go ahead, Darin. It's a level of hatred that is hard to comprehend.
And also when when the whole community is enjoying it, that's what bothers me. I know they used to burn witches in Salem and that kind of thing, but I don't know if the people that were committing the crime were jumping up and down and enjoying it.
There is something that that we only know because they tell us that this happened in history, but we know that that hangings, hangings were public, and the beheadings were public. And people were not required to go. I mean, this is what they tell us in the history books. They had public executions and people were not required to go. So that tells me that there is something in human nature that wants to be there. And I'm not sure that it was ever solemn.
What's that German phrase, Schadenfreude?
Yes, Schadenfreude, delight in other people's suffering.
I actually watched a little bit of The Life of Brian last night, Monty Python, where they were stoning the guy who said the word Jehovah, and I'm just reminded of that now. There's something about another person being scapegoated that is appealing somehow to other people. Yeah.
Joanne, you also said that this was something that was once this type of execution was set into motion, that there was nothing that you could do as a bystander to help them. That it happened so.
No.
Yeah.
Even the army, they weren't even allowed to shoot them. I mean, the people that were burning, to put them out of their misery.
Why?
They weren't. So the army had to stand by and watch these people burn to death. They weren't
Joanne,
allowed to. Yeah.
I didn't know that, and that's actually sent a little shiver through me when I heard you say that. I was thinking of some of the pictures I've seen in print, where you'll see a policeman putting out a victim with a fire extinguisher. But the person's already far gone.
Yeah.
So there you go. The police or the army couldn't interfere and put someone out of their misery because it'd probably create even more violence.
Yep. They had to just basically stand by and watch, smell it, and and it's like a sport. The way that they do it, it's not just a one-on-one; it's a group, and they feed off of each other. Same thing. In that horrific time I spent at the police, which made me decide I don't want to be in the police, was someone getting slashed to death with a panga. They run, and it doesn't even look like the panga's hitting them, even though you can see it, because they are running until the final stroke, and then they just drop.
What is what is a panga?
Yeah? A machete. So it's a long blade that you can use to chop like long grass.
Right, okay. Yeah, see,
Yes,
Alan talked
one
about...
of the favorite tools.
Alan talked about how in Rwanda you had so many machetes going that it sounded like crickets. I mean, it had a sound, this constant, the machetes in the air, of the absolute violence and bloodlust.
Yep. Rwanda was absolutely horrific. And you look at Rwanda, Congo, all these other countries, Zimbabwe, and, you sit here and you think, my gosh, I am stuck in this country. There's nowhere to run to. And it could be your turn tonight. No one thinks it's going to be their turn until it is their turn. And the cruelty, the torture, it's like they're trying to dehumanize you to, I don't know, it's, like I said, you can sit and try and wrap your head around what kind of thinking that is, and I can't do it.
Okay, I want to say something here, and that because we've been talking about horrific violence and a kind of you said something, Darin, in an email not too long ago about the kind of bestial place that so much of humanity is in, that there's something, they're not really recognizable as human any longer. But to me, I think why it is important to talk about this, what we're talking about is really perception, and it is the discomfort that one has when they live in a place in which the perceptions of reality are so spun and controlled, tightly controlled. So the rest of the world has an image of South Africa as having a very bad racism problem, whites against blacks. The blacks have overcome. The ANC is good. Nelson Mandela was good. He was righteous. And so you have this sense, I, watching this, think, what would it be like to be white and living in this country? Because only you know the inside of you. Only you know if you are a racist or not a racist. But you may fall into that category simply because your skin is white. And you look at this and you know that the way this is being conveyed to the rest of the world is not true. And I think that I wanted to hear you, Joanne, get into a little bit more about Julius Malema, because he was mentored by Winnie Mandela. And it is Julius Malema now who is the head of the EFF. Did I get the party right?
EFF, yeah, Economic Freedom Fighters. And
it is he who is singing "Kill the Boer, kill the farmer, kill the white man" in stadiums filled with many thousands of black people. And then saying it's not a call, and saying, oh, it's just a historical song. It's not a call. As he put it, it's not a call yet for their deaths.
Julius Malema says so many things that not yet, it's already happening. As soon as he sings that song and word gets around, people start dropping. And yes, he was close with Winnie Mandela, but look at him and listen to his speeches. He often refers to Nelson Mandela, that Nelson Mandela knew that you had to pick up arms, that you had to kill. He often praises Nelson Mandela and that Nelson Mandela was right. So, yes, Winnie had some influence, but this could be like a young Nelson.
Mm-hmm.
We just, there wasn't social media back then, like there is now, where it spreads like wildfire. And, the fact that he keeps on referring back to Nelson Mandela, it makes you really think, he was not a good man. And, the rest of the world, they don't know. I get told every day, because what my students know of South Africa was the wonderful president we had that won the Nobel Peace Prize.
Mm-hmm.
And, they can't stop praising him. And you're like, okay, you just keep quiet. Because you don't want to tell them, well, actually, you know what he did? Because they're children, but this is what people are learning. It's been handed down, until he's some kind of a god. When, yes, apartheid was wrong. What was happening, especially behind the scenes, things that most people didn't know about. It was wrong. But I'm sorry, I don't believe that he came out with good intentions. He was approached by de Klerk in 85, so 1985, and he asked Nelson Mandela to renounce violence, and he could go. Nelson refused.
Mm-hmm.
That was in 1985. 1987, from jail, he was arranging more murders. He arranged for, I think it was 14 people to get killed in a car bombing in 1987. 1988, he wasn't at Robben Island. He was staying, they said it was a warden's house. I'll send you the picture. It's got a swimming pool and everything.
Mm-hmm.
He was having meetings with de Klerk. There's also other persons from Commonwealth that came and met with him. No name, no further information was given. I think, most of the others took the, when they were approached with the same deal, renounce violence, you can go. They did it. He wouldn't.
Mm-hmm.
So, if he was doing all of that, still arranging all these, assassinations and things, in 1987 is the last one that I know of, how all of a sudden can he come out with good intentions?
Right.
But
it is
like
interesting. Go ahead.
Sorry?
I was going to say it is interesting what you're describing, that he has an actually rather luxurious prison sentence, lots of freedom and comforts, and he is also, most importantly, meeting with heads of state, not only the head of state of South Africa, but from other countries. So he's being groomed while in a rather comfortable prison experience for what comes next.
Yes, exactly. And, I mentioned it in the article. Ramaphosa was his person that he chose to do the negotiations for him. And, Ramaphosa, I know it, I think a lot of people do, although it's very hard to find the actual article where Ramaphosa refers to the white people as frogs that you put in a pot of water and you slowly turn up the heat so that you have to do it slowly so that they don't all jump out. You do it slowly and then they'll all just sit there and cook to death. That is what Cyril Ramaphosa's intentions were. And if you look at what's happening, it looks like he's getting his wish.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Darin. Is Darin still there?
Hi.
Oh, hi.
Sorry. My Skype decided to go slow there for a second.
Oh, okay.
My take on this whole thing is I'm a little bit of a devil's advocate. I do agree with Joanne, and I'm trying to take in the totality of it because I don't want to take sides, because in my personal life and at work, as a white guy who is almost 50 years old, in my personal experience with people of all races in this country, how you treat other people is how you tend to be treated. Mm-hmm. And I've had nothing, absolutely nothing but goodwill my entire life. I've experienced a minimal of racism from just about all quarters. And I do know that I've met white people who are they are real, proper racists.
Mm-hmm.
You'll encounter racism everywhere. And I know that during apartheid, and I've met some of these people who are in their 70s. They will tell you how they were involved in the paramilitary, because the army wasn't so much involved with upholding apartheid, it was the police.
Mm-hmm.
But there were different divisions within the police. You had the hit squads, you had the guys who pulled off their dog tags and went and did things that would make your what's the word? You would
your skin crawl.
Make your skin crawl. They did the dirty deeds for the apartheid system. So, I think that the use of violence by the black people, I think it actually was warranted. I actually do think it's true. I think it had to happen, but it happened in a way which was quite regretful, and there are a few bad actors who do not regret what they've done. So I think that within the freedom movement, or you're going to have these different actors, and even within the apartheid system, you had those who were the hardened type, who would enforce the apartheid system with psychopathic glee. You heard those stories.
Mm-hmm. And
you had others that they supported apartheid, but they were, how could you say it, ethical. They had a bit of empathy for their lessers. You always get that bigger picture. You always have those people. So as a close to 50-year-old white male in this country, I just wanted to say, if you had to listen to us speaking, I don't want to leave people with the impression that I think black people are all violent. I don't want to create this impression that it's a white versus black thing, because I just wanted to give a little anecdote regarding the purchasing of guns. My father was relating to me that he was going for a hunting license, and he was doing his competency course. And, you have to write an exam. And he noticed that for every one white person applying and writing the exam for their competency certificate, there were 9 black people all applying. And, you start, my father said you would get to chatting with these people. And he said, look, what is your reason, for getting a firearm license? And they said, look, the police just can't cope. We are being inundated with violent crime. House robberies, burglaries, you name it. There are black people that are very much the victim of extreme violence and of all kinds of crime, as are any other population group within this country. So South Africa has a moral problem, an ethical problem. Things have spiraled out of control under the ANC. When I spoke about the farm murders with you, I did want to make the differentiation about farm murders, because there is a difference. There is a difference there. But I don't want to take away from the fact that it's a moral problem. There are good people who are struggling to survive and earn a living, and they are constantly being hit by just about every kind of crime there is. And the police can't cope. You have political pot stirrers that I think that the ANC actually uses the likes of the EFF and Malema you can call it as a sort of the more aggressive wing of the ANC, to keep the pot stirred, just to keep it boiling, And you can see it as soon as these things settle down. The white people, the black people, the Indian people, the colored people, and every other color and creed get along quite well, sort of, as much as you can expect in the world. And they don't like that. They really do not like that, because when people start talking and getting together, they realize that their common enemy really is the ANC government. So you have to stir the pot. You have to stir that pot. And we see it. It's so obvious. And it saddens me when I see people falling for the stirring, and they pick a side, and people who have had bad racial experiences come out with their racial comments. And I've met these people, you'll hear people making racial comments, but, it's more of a venting of frustration rather than they're not really racists in action in their lives. They're actually reasonably okay. But when you have racial tension and the politicians are stirring the pot, it does come out, frustrations. But my personal experience in life in this country is that I've been treated well by everyone. I have had one or two little incidences, but very minor. Otherwise, it's a case of South Africa has been thoroughly divided and conquered for quite a while. So we'll have to see what happens now.
Well, there's a couple, Joanne, there's a couple of things that I wanted to make sure that we talked about, but what were you going to say?
I was gonna agree with what Darin said, and I think that also stems back to what I was saying earlier. People aren't racist, but you have somebody of another color taking away someone you love. Mm-hmm. In that kind of fashion, it does bring out the racial thing. And like Darin says, you venting, you're not a racist, but this is what you have been through. And it's really hard with the pot being stirred continuously, because that is what the government is relying on. And Julius is 100% with Cyril doing the dirty work. That's my feeling. And the more the people of this country are fighting each other, the more they are stealing at the top.
There's a couple of things here before we wrap it up, and I wanted to get back to talking about Petrus and what he's doing. But again, the uncomfortable dialogue around racism, especially when you are white. I just stumbled on this old article from several years ago. I was looking for something and looking for something and looking for something, and last night a piece of trivia popped up beside something that I was looking for, which was that the actor Liam Neeson had been preparing for a role in which he needed to conjure up a lot of anger. And he was describing that a friend of his had been raped by a black man many years ago. And at the time that it happened, he said he walked down the street with so much rage, he just wanted to kill someone because of what had happened to his friend. And he said he just went back into that place to prepare for a role. Well, what happened to him was that the world turned on this actor and called him a racist simply for going into a place. He said, I'm not a racist. I'm just telling you about a rage that I had many years ago towards someone who happened to be black. So this is the dilemma that we are in, is we may not have these feelings at all, but you can't even talk about what is going on or what you've experienced in your life, or that will be pointed at you.
Melissa, you're very right there. The color thing, it's so easy to stir the pot and to keep it going, because what you've just described can take place between a Xhosa and a Zulu, who are both black, a German and a Frenchman.
Yes.
Exactly the same feelings can be stirred up between a Catholic and a Protestant.
Yes.
But the color difference between a black man and a white man has got a sticking point in today's political correctness, where it's almost viewed as a black man cannot be racist, no matter what he does. And the white guy is continuously apologizing for his very existence now, or at least a lot of people feel like they have to do that. Yes, it's definitely a global I think that that's got bigger geopolitical.
It does, and I know what the bigger geopolitical causation is here. This is global communism. This was written about more than 100 years ago, specifically about the U.S., but other parts of the West, and I think we can now apply this to South Africa, where we have a black-white, where there's race there, because they knew that things were so comfortable in America for the average worker that they would never be able to have a class struggle. It would always have to be a race struggle. And that's what we're living through in the United States. This is what Black Lives Matter is about. This is what's going on there. We do have a common enemy. It is not each other, regardless of our creed or our skin color. This is a Marxist technique that is being used against us. You
can see how they are filtering in the different racial groups and trying to mix it up in in Europe. Mm-hmm. Because it's working so well in South Africa, it's working so well in the United States, that you just have to introduce it to a lily white Europe, and you can use the same tactics to achieve what they really are pulling off very, very quickly.
Which is international communism.
That's it. Yeah. Can I elaborate something on that point, Melissa?
Yes.
Because it is international communism, but it's also international capitalism at the same time. I remember what you said when Alan would describe it as a capitalist, communist, fascist.
Capi-kami fasci. That's what he would say.
Because what's happening is that they want to install a global public-private partnership system of running things. So it is international communism and it is international capitalism merging as one, but it's capitalism for those who have capital over those who they will control. Those who they control will have international communism. So the plebs will have a communism or a communitarianism system dominating over them with a monopolistic capital. So you can sort of say, some people argue about, is it capitalism or communism? It's actually a blend of the two being used. Yes, that's right. It just depends where you stand.
That's right. Yeah. We did not talk as much about the farm murders as I hoped, but there are a couple of things that I'd like us to get into before we wrap this up. The first thing is about Petrus, who is not here with us in this conversation. Last night, when we were attempting to record something, he had a very limited window. It didn't work out because what he was leaving to do, he was having a prayer conference with a group of pastors. And so the commitment, Petrus describes what he is doing as a mission, and he said he felt a calling from God to do this mission. He is a committed Christian who doesn't view this as a us versus them or a black versus white. This is a moral problem, and he is bringing a Christian perspective. Yes, he's a black man, but I think what identifies him the most in his commitment is that he is a Christian.
I call it he's a man of principle.
Yes, he is.
I think that Petrus would stand up for the farmer if they were all Chinese or if they were all Nigerian.
Yes.
I think that's what principle means, and I applaud Petrus and anyone who is like him, because you can overcome any kind of prejudice and see the world through the correct lens. It's how we behave, you know.
Yes. So while we're talking about him, Joanne, about 10 months ago, 9 or 10 months ago, you set up Back a Buddy, which is like a crowdfunding tool for Petrus. And when I looked at that a couple of months ago, you had barely made a third. Maybe it was 25% of the goal, which was quite modest. And I have mentioned this several times. I am frankly discouraged, because some of these talks, the talk with Darin about the farm killings in South Africa was definitely the most listened to, most watched real history episode that I've done so far. The episode with Petrus also had many views, many listeners, and yet I've begged people to support this, and that helped to bring it up a little over, say, a third of the way up the goal, which is, again, so modest. It's, I don't know, what is it, 7,500, 8,000 US? And he's barely eking that in. And I think to myself, well, if all of the people who listened or watched these popular episodes just donated the cost of a cup of coffee, which is what, now about $5 universally averaging it out, he would be at his goal. He would already be there.
I know, and that is the sad thing, you know. When he went on, not this latest walk, the one before, I tried to get sponsorship for 5 pairs of walking shoes. I approached all of the well-known franchises and brands here. Not one would give us 5 pairs of walking shoes. So Petrus and his team walked in the shoes that they had. Their feet were raw and bleeding, swollen after the first day, and they carried on walking. I went to like big shopping where we do our grocery shopping, you know, fruit and veg and, you know, all the big brands here, and asked them for sponsorship or a donation, and nothing. Not a thing. And especially like the fruit and veg places that I know are dealing with farmers. I'm like, do you realize that without the farmers, what are you going to do? You're not going to have food to sell. You know, so this is a very worthy cause. Now, we would ask the people, okay, even if each person gives 10 rand, that will help.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, 10 rand. I mean, what's the exchange rate now? I think it's about 18 to 1. I can't spare 10 rand. And what Petrus and his team went through, I used to sit on the phone with them most of the time, but, you know, at night, and trying to find, you know, like remedies, something cheap, you know, or something, you know, ice and then warm water, then ice, and keep your feet up. And it was heartbreaking.
You see, what Petrus is doing, and the team that walk with him, I mean, this isn't the only thing they're doing, and you can get into some of that, but they are walking, and they have a big white cross that's nearly as tall as Petrus that he carries. Stop farm murders. And they meet people, and it's a presence out there, so they're bringing attention to a problem, and they meet with people black and white and all along the way. But here you have a black man who is drawing an attention and saying, this is a problem that supersedes race. This is a problem where our farmers are under attack, and this is food security. This is humanity. And so he's bringing attention to it in that way. That's a huge part of what he's doing. But he's also launched a suit against the ANC. And I also wanted to hear about things that he has planned that he would like to do, so that people know where the cost of their cup of coffee that they might want to contribute to what you are helping him do.
Well, he's just come back from the BRICS summit. I don't know if he filled you in on what happened there.
No, he did not. That is Brazil, Russia, India, China. That's the BRICS summit.
Yes, and that happened at Sandton Convention Center, which is Joburg area. So they drove through there, and he was very open about it. I made some posters for him, although I was telling him he shouldn't be saying that he is going, because the amount of death threats this man gets, if you had to go onto his TikTok and look at the death threats, people saying that I've got your necklace, you know, I've got your necklace for you, you know, and people asking each other, where's he stay? Where's he stay? We'll sort him out, you know, and the amount of death threats, it's like every time he walks, you know, he wants people to know where he's going next because it's to raise awareness. And I'm so scared that someone is going to kill him. So he was very open, telling everybody he's going to BRICS. You know, can people help sponsorship, you know, for petrol money, accommodation, and he's going to expose this government to everybody who is watching, which would more than likely be the whole world, because of, you know, what could happen. And he was adamant that God will protect him, so I mustn't worry about it. You know, I must just do the posters, and he did lives saying, you know, telling people that he was going, and he went. He's got some videos. They got to the Sandton Convention Center, where they were very hastily met by a group of policemen who escorted them away, but one also gave him a phone to speak to somebody. Now, with all the noise and everything going on, he doesn't know who he spoke to. For all we know, it could have been Bekitsele, but telling him not to embarrass South Africa. And they moved them to, we had like a picketing area where, you know, people were, you know, picketing for Russia, stop the war, and this and that. They moved him there. The next day, he was confronted by another woman who was at the picketing area. Now, because they were speaking another language, I couldn't understand. But she was shouting at him and had it, you know, like right up in his face. And you could see, you know, he wasn't attacking her. She was attacking him verbally. And the police came and removed him. Mm-hmm. He had to leave, and he's saying, because you know, they filmed it, he's saying, but I didn't do anything. So it's like they intentionally put this person there to cause a problem so they'd have a reason to remove him.
Joanne?
So, yeah?
I saw the video. She was wearing a red T-shirt. I think she might have been a...
I know. That's what I thought.
Might have been what?
That's what I thought. She was wearing red.
Would have meant she's probably an EFF member.
Oh yeah. Okay.
Yes.
Well, it looks like it. It's yeah.
Okay. That's what my thoughts were, but I couldn't say for sure. And I tried asking Petrus, what was she saying? You know, who was she? And he kind of just, you know, blew it off because he knows that I worry about him all the time. But yeah, she more than likely was, and she was put there to cause the problem and to have him removed. So, yes. So basically, with Petrus, and he's been like this since, longer than I've been with them. But, like, you know, he'll phone you one day and say, okay, so today's Monday. On Thursday we're walking. I'm like, okay, where? Where are we walking to? No, we're walking all 9 provinces. I'm like, oh my word. Okay, now we got to sit and try and, you know, get money in to get them shoes, to try, you know, sort out accommodation, you know, but he's very spontaneous. Well, as he would say, you know, he's following orders that he's getting. Mm-hmm. You know, he's doing what God wants him to do. So what Petrus will do in the future, he's going to keep on fighting, and I don't see him stopping. I don't see him ever giving up, because we have been through lows, and I've got family in East London still who own a restaurant, and Petrus and his family had no food. After they'd done one of these walks at Christmas time, they had no food. And you think of everything that he has given for us, and he goes home to his family and he can't even feed them. I got it's family in East London that we kind of grew apart, you know, so I don't really know them that well. But I phoned them and I said, please, you know, can you please sponsor his family a meal? So they did like takeaway boxes for him and his family, and they kind of just got whatever. But he was so grateful. Mm. I mean, he took a photo even and showed me the boxes.
Wow, that's so nice.
So in that way, you know, he, like I said, he gives so much. And
can I add to what you're saying? Something that's been bothering me, and I did mention it to you when I spoke to you earlier today. I see the photographs of Petrus at various events, and he has his immediate team with him. And here and there you'll see some farmers join him. But I get the impression that he is not... If I was Petrus and I was making this effort and I was walking through these areas, and where are the people there in... You know, it's one thing receiving a donation, but it's quite another thing when someone comes and walks with you or makes an effort to meet you at a place. I'm seeing a lack of people at this bricks thing. Where were all the other people who live in that area who could have gone round?
Yeah.
I just saw what looked like Petrus on the people need to wake up, and they need to get involved. They don't have to sing and chant. They can just stand there and hold hands together make themselves more visible. If they had something to hold, they don't have to speak. They can just literally just be there in presence. I think if I was in Petrus's shoes, I would really, really appreciate the camaraderie. You know, when someone's close with you, you feel that connection. You know, you can have someone in the room with you just knowing that they're there. How much more so in the case where Petrus is putting himself on the line.
We talked about that.
To see, more people. Where are you? Come on.
Do you remember
in your area?
Yeah. Do you remember, Darin, the three of us, Petrus, you and I, talking last time about the armchair warriors?
Exactly. Get in your car, go and find out where Petrus is, and just hang around and maybe have a chat with him. There is something about people connecting with other people that's very, very powerful. Other people see it. We mentioned it this morning, Joanne. I've never been an activist in my life. I've never done this. I've never been involved. But now that I've had the opportunity to meet Petrus in the flesh, the first time I met him, and then having these chats, even in that small way, a few more eyeballs in the world have got to know about what's happening. They know who Petrus is more so. It all adds up. Just every little person makes a difference, and the momentum seems to be frustratingly slow now that I'm paying attention to it.
Yeah.
And
I don't know if you've seen on his website, I updated the walk that he did, and every day I'd put the poster that I would send out on his WhatsApp groups, because he does have a following.
Yes.
On the cell phones and on the computers. Okay? But these people just do not appear. Like I would say, okay, like I said, against my better judgment, this man's a walking target. I would say to them, okay, so tomorrow Petrus is leaving this city and he's walking to this city. If you drive past him, stop, say hello, or hoot, wave. He's doing this for us, for everybody in this country.
But Petrus is also saying, help me help you. And now that you are activated in a sense, come and join in and help somebody else too. I can't do it all. He can't do it all by himself. He can't create visibility on his own. And how many, I get the sense that there's about 3 or 4 people that are consistently by his side.
Yeah.
How much more so if wherever he went, there were 20, 30, 40, 50, 100 people. Coming and going. You could raise the spirits of people a hell of a lot. Anyway, that's just something that I noticed. I actually showed Petrus's activities at Bricks to my father, and his very first words to me were, "Where are all the burkies?" Meaning, where are all the farmers? Where's the backup support for him? That was his statement to me.
Exactly.
Please, to anyone listening, even if you have donated, hell, imagine if you were in Petrus's shoes and the shoes of his friends. Come along, bring a flask of coffee with you, something to snack on, come and meet the people, and maybe walk 5 kilometers with Petrus.
Yeah.
That's what the moral support and the moral encouragement, and it's just what people really do respond to. It's what we need.
I think there's something else too that I want to add for people who are listening in other parts of the world. If you appreciate what he is doing, then take some of the footage that you find, whether it's something that you get on Petrus's website or if it is this talk that we do, and share it. Email it to somebody.
Yes, please.
Tweet it to someone. Send it on your whatever app that you use to communicating with people. Put it in your group and let people know what's going on. And I think that would help. Also, to Joanne, if you can send me some photographs of his walk at Bricks, that would be helpful. And any other updates that you can send me that will help me visually illustrate this. But this is something that matters to me because I think I really believe that I still have faith in humanity. I still believe that people can understand who their enemy is. That they can be helped not to turn on each other, and they can be helped to know who to support and how to support them. And I think that this is something very worthwhile that the two of you are doing, because you're an enormous help. I mean, he described you as, someone who basically just runs his life.
If only it were that easy, and to all the people who think that he's being controlled by a white person, definitely not. He does what once Petrus decides what he wants to do, no matter what I tell him, he does what he has set out to do. Me telling him don't do this, or, on the walk, where I kept it, that I was talking to you guys about, his blood pressure was so high. And I'm telling him, please, Petrus, just hang in that town for just a couple of days. Go and get yourself properly checked out, please. And he didn't. The next day he was walking to the next town. He is so selfless. So there's no controlling him. No one is controlling him. No human.
But he has expressed a lot of appreciation for you helping with emails and coordinate things. And, I know you're not pulling the strings, the great puppet master, Joanne, but you are very helpful to him and appreciated. And I'm happy to meet you and have this talk with you.
Yeah, no, it's great to meet you as well. And I think, the more that people listen, people actually look and see, people will realize what is actually going on. Mm-hmm. It's really, really sad. It's a beautiful country. Now, if you come here on holiday, oh my, not a good idea.
Yeah.
But one thing, even though everybody looks at the black on white thing and farm attacks, and, there was one that happened a little while ago where this elderly lady was beaten and traumatized and bound. She managed to get free and snuck away. She ran for 3 kilometers through the bush, barefoot. And a farm worker found her and he hid her. This is an elderly gentleman as well. And he hid her. Now, for him to do that, he was putting his life in danger. So it's complicated. It's not just black and white, they're good people and there are bad people. And then there are people who are brainwashing other people.
I thank you both for taking time to speak with me, and I think that, I hope that we're able to do this again, and maybe we'll have all 4 of us on a call at one time. It'll all work out, but this is what is happening in South Africa. There's a very deep, long history. I think we just scratched the surface of it. But the point that I wanted to make clear is that, longtime listeners to Alan Watt are going to know that things are not as they are presented in the history books or in the mainstream media. But I think it's so important to know from people who live through events to get a different perspective than the one you will get that's authorized. So I thank you both for taking the time to be with me, and I hope that we're able to do this again in the not too distant future.
That would be great. And we can update you on Petrus's latest adventures.
That's great. And Darin, thank you. You always have good input and make some really good points, and I thank you for taking the time to do this. And for everyone listening, I will be back again next week with another episode, and thank you so much. And anyone who feels moved to support what Joanne and Petrus are trying to accomplish in South Africa, please visit the Baka Buddy site, and I will supply the link as well as links to Petrus's website. So thank you all very much.
Well, I've got something that the world didn't